everybody. This is Jack Easum with TrumpRepublican.News. TrumpRepublican.News. Again, that's TrumpRepublican.News. Well, we're following up with our show yesterday that talked about Ohio's 12th congressional district and the possibility of voter fraud. Well, the conservative Tribune did a couple stories today on voters in Ohio. One of the headlines, 170 voters in Ohio race are over 116 years old. However, the world's oldest person is only 115. Well, it's becoming clear, as Sophia Clifton writes, that Democrats will stop at nothing to get their blue wave to happen. See, they want us to believe the blue wave, when in reality, dead people are voting. In Tuesday's special election for Ohio's 12th congressional district, Republican Troy Balderson won by a very narrow margin, around 1,600 votes ultimately. That's less than 1% of the total number of votes in the entire district, making the election too close to call at the moment and requiring a recount under Ohio law. Well, there are more than 3,000 provisional ballots still have to be counted, nearly twice the number of votes in the winning margin. So Balderson's victory is far from assured. Such a slim margin in this special election has brought to light the dangerous consequences voter fraud, that's right, voter fraud, can have for those who play fair. According to expert Eric Eggers, research director at the Government Accountability Institute, 170 registered voters in Ohio's 12th congressional district are listed as being over 116 years old. That's right, once again, dead people voting. Considering that the world's oldest living person is a 115-year-old resident of Japan, there's a big problem. That's 10% of Balderson's current margin of victory, pending provisional ballots. And 72 voters over the age of 116 who live in Balderson's district cast ballots in the 2016 election. That's when President Trump won. In fact, many of the voters on Ohio's rolls list their birthdays as January 1st, 1800. That's right, January 1st, 1800, making them, 218 years old? Clearly, something is very much amiss. For 4 years now, Democrats in Ohio have been fighting efforts to prevent voter fraud, and it's easy to see why. In June, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 in favor of Ohio's system for purging ineligible voters from the rolls, dealing a tough blow to Ohio Democrats. The Ohio Democrats have been fighting like crazy because if they can get dead people to vote and many other rigging up the election, they can win because of voter fraud. If voter ID laws are passed and implemented as a result of that Supreme Court ruling, those 170 impossibly old voters would no longer be able to cast ballots. And that is something the fraudulent Democrats of the state desperately want to avoid. A critical swing state, Ohio has voted for the winner in presidential races in 28 out of the last 30 elections. In fact, President Trump won there big. As Ohio goes, so goes the nation. That's what they like to say about Ohio. While it might seem strange to witness millions of dollars pouring into a down-ballot race in the heartland, there is a method to the Democrats' madness. They're pouring millions of dollars into that race where the Democrat currently has lost. Delve below the surface and you'll see that the Democrats have their sights set on 2020, defeating Donald Trump, taking back the presidency. And they will stop at nothing to achieve their goal. If you remember listening to yesterday's show, I talked about the over 1 million Ohio printed ballots that had already had Hillary Clinton and Democrats checked off as being voted for before the election ever took place. There was some kind of election fraud going on there on a massive scale. And following up on that article, another interesting article, same group, Conservative Tribune. Jared Harris wrote, officials magically find hundreds of new votes that boost Democrats in toss-up Ohio election. Well, the Democrat candidate in the Ohio special election, it's a guy named Danny O'Connor, has been trailing behind the GOP's Troy Balderson. The race was expected to be an easy win for Republicans, but we all know how inaccurate voter polling can be. But now O'Connor has narrowed his margin with the, quote, discovery of 588 votes. If you listened to the show last night, you realized that as I saw the vote count coming in, they started stalling out at about 80%. And the reason that happens, folks, I've seen this in voter fraud all the time, somebody's trying to count the numbers. They're trying to count the numbers to see how many votes they need to win. And that's a very common game in a rigged election where there's voter fraud and election fraud in the system itself. West Virginia and Chicago and Illinois come to mind from the Kennedy-Nixon presidential race way back when in, 1961. And there they had to wait to see how many votes they needed so they could win for Kennedy. That's looked to me like what they were trying to do last night. It's very obvious once you start observing this kind of stuff, and I've been doing that for years. Well, now O'Connor's narrowed this margin, and according to The Hill, Balderson now leads by only 1,564 votes. This will most certainly fluctuate as the 3,435 provisional ballots and 5,048 absentee ballots are counted. I want to point something out. Absentee ballots used to always go for the Republican Party. But in the past few, presidential elections, there has been an increase in Democrats, particularly Democrats who are voting from the military overseas and from American U.S. citizens that are overseas that are voting. Many of those votes have been found to be fraudulent in the past, but because of recount laws, hiding it, the rigged election side of it, no one has been able to catch it as effectively as President Trump is going to catch it. Remember, he set up a commission to finalize integrity in voting, and all kinds of states, including California and I believe Ohio, would not comply with the information just on the voter rolls so they could do a comparison to see if the people voting are U.S. citizens. Well, hey, the Democrats will go to anything to try to win, and they're better at rigging elections than Republicans are. No fact, no fact could be more clear. And Danny O'Connor, he tweeted today that he just found or netted 190 votes from Franklin County. So apparently, someone somewhere was sitting on those votes, or maybe those are merely votes that they forgot to put in the ballot box because the votes hadn't been done yet from those ballots and hadn't been fixed before the ballot box went out to be counted. Oh yeah, they'll play all kinds of tricks. They'll switch boxes with empty ones and then with the rigged ones. So votes for O'Connor is not their only trick. Also, the ability to magically make his opponents vanish from Twitter even when searched. So opponents start to get wiped off of all the social media as well. And right now, that's when it's very important for everyone to be on the watch and be able to look out for voter fraud and to communicate what's going on, especially if you got there and somebody had already voted for you. That's part of the voter fraud that they've been getting away with for years. People were only shown one candidate when the election was searched on the social media platform of Twitter. If you've been keeping track, this is 2 magic tricks already that have been shall we say, not something you want to see happening in any kind of election. And lots of votes still have not been counted, and both camps are waiting for a miracle. Since Ohio law will automatically trigger a recount if the margin is 0.5% or less, the election for the Democrats has been a race to close the gap. The reappearing votes have put O'Connor one step closer to doing that. It must be luck of the Irish. And Jared Harris, he's a really good person based on his biography. Husband, dad, farmer. He was an infantryman in the Arkansas and Georgia National Guard. When he's not with his wife and son, he's either shooting guns or working on his motorcycle. That's Jared Harris, who wrote that article about the officials magically find hundreds of votes. Folks, this is serious stuff. This is serious stuff. And this is a preamble to what they're going to try to do during the 2020 election and for this coming November for the general election. So please pay attention. If you see any voter fraud or election fraud and you're in Ohio or any other state, report it. Report it to the Republican Party. Call the White House. Let them know, and let them pass it on to those who can deal with it at the federal level. Well, that's about all I have for today. It's a mouthful. So much activity happening in so many races, so much voter fraud going on, folks. It's mind-boggling. But thank goodness we have President Trump in there. And as President Trump likes to say, keep moving forward. Never, ever give up. God bless everybody.